Hey everyone, and welcome to Balanced Reviews. I'm Tower, and next to me we have Flaming Weasel, then Brim to her left, Fun Griff down below on the left, and Ninth down below on the right. And today we are going to be reviewing Final Fantasy the Zodiac Age. And I'm trying not to burp in your ears. So as per normal with this show, we're going to start off with everyone talking about what we liked about the game, the positives. Then we're going to go on to the negatives and then give an overall score 1 to 10. So let's get right into it, guys. The positives. What did you guys like about Final Fantasy the Zodiac Age?
I liked the cutscenes. I thought they were pretty.
Yeah.
Yep.
I agree with that.
Yeah, those cutscenes were very much so pretty, and just kind of overall it felt novel to me.
Like I really enjoyed the whole the setting. I like the environments and the music and everything.
So the overall aesthetic, everyone would say that
the aesthetic
was
is
good.
nice.
Yeah, that's probably my primary positive would be the aesthetic myself. And I'm not into anime or anything like that, and I thought it was really nicely done, especially because I believe this is a remaster.
Yeah.
That was very well done.
I believe it was originally a PS2 game.
Yep.
It was. I purchased myself a copy on the PS2 because I want to play it.
I had it on the PS2.
Yeah. All right. Any other positives?
I've been a fan of the Final Fantasy series since the first one. I played the original Nintendo version of Final Fantasy, the very first Final Fantasy. And then I played all the way through to 9, and that's where I stopped because I just didn't play any. I got into first-person shooters after that, so I just played first-person shooters instead of RPG games. Going back to a Final Fantasy game after so many years, I think it's been like 20 years since I've actually played a Final Fantasy game. And just being back in the world itself, just you can see the world develop the further they go in, and just the enemies, you see them on the 8-bit and they just get prettier graphics the further they go.
Yeah,
it's just nice having something familiar, but it's different all the way through that you grew up with, and it's still going.
Cool.
So,
hey, anyone else?
I love the characters because I just love Fran. She's my favorite
yes, Fran's
character
awesome.
ever. I love Fran. She's always been my favorite character in pretty much any Final Fantasy game I've played.
All right, cool.
the music.
I also liked the skill system, the job system in it, where it's like if you want to, your main character that you start with, you want to make them a white mage, a black mage, you want to make them an archer, go to it. Whatever you want to do.
Yeah, there's definitely ones that they're more suited to, but you can do whatever you want with them. And I really appreciate the fact that it's like if you don't like it, you can just redo it. Like you're not stuck to anything. You can just you can go to monoblock and redo it.
Yep.
I did like how the setup for the different setting the classes worked. I thought that was pretty neat. I know with a lot of these type of games, generally you have this character is kind of even if they have movement, they start at a certain point and you have to get X, Y, Z to be able to move them over to this type of class, stuff like that. So being able to just choose on the wheel thing what you're progressing towards was nice.
Yeah.
So I definitely agree with that. Any other positives?
The music is definitely a big hit for me. The Final Fantasy composers have always been really good. I've actually bought some of their soundtracks in the past just to hear the music because each one is familiar, but it's different. Like the opening theme for the games and the battle music, the boss fights, all that music has been in one way or another iteration in all the previous games and future games. So it's familiar, but it's different. So it's not the same every time, but it's something nice to come back to, and it's really well done. I don't think there's hardly any music that I heard that I was like, oh, this is boring, I don't like this. It doesn't fit the scene. Something like that.
Yeah, I love the music too. I actually went to a symphony. I can't pronounce the word, but a symphony one night where the whole thing they were performing was Final Fantasy music.
Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah, and I can definitely agree that though I didn't get a ton of time into the game, I was never in any areas where the music felt repetitive and oppressive.
Cool. Cool. All right. Any other key positives?
Yeah, this one dragged me in. I mean, there have been reviews where I've literally only spent a couple hours on the game, or maybe 4 or 5 sometimes. This one, as best as I can figure, I got a third of the way through the game. I liked it, so I kept plugging through it.
Nice. That's always good. Because it gives you more insight, too. Yeah. I any others? Or is that about...
I guess the story itself is just the story is really well done. What I've seen of it, it's very like Not said you get dragged into the story. You can just it's got nice progression on it. You might not like all the characters, but you still feel like you can like this. All the characters have different personality, and the storyline fits for what the personality is.
I guess going along with that, new governor was of Rabanaster, but I think he was very well done because in his original speech he comes off very much so like a good person, and I wasn't able to get far enough, but I assume he is not. Can any of you confirm or deny that?
I haven't got that far into it to find out either.
He has issues. He's not a great guy.
Yeah, but I very much like that he was well written enough in how they presented him, where my first impression of him is like, okay, he seems like a good guy. He seems like he might not fit in with what's supposed to be the evil empire you're fighting.
It's nice when they have a villain and it's not just like
it
shows them like decapitating babies and drowning puppies or something, and it's like it's nuanced. It's not black and white.
Oogie
Yeah.
boogie, I am bad guy. I can definitely see that, for sure. All right. Do we have any last positives before we go over to the negatives?
Well, I do have one that will work as a transition.
All right.
That being the combat system, where I believe how you put it, Tower, was they tried to do a real-time turn-based
it's terrible.
combat.
It's
I'm definitely not a fan of the combat system. Like I like setting up the gambits for the ones I'm not controlling. That's fine, but like I'm just not a fan of the real time thing. I'd much prefer it just be straight turn based.
So are we going into negatives then?
We're there.
So we're going into negatives. Okay, because I've been trying to keep my mouth shut for most of the positives for reasons. This was not my particular favorite game we have ever played and or reviewed, and I'm very hard on it because this is a remaster and it is a game that they had money behind. So I'm not going to be pulling any punches with that in mind. And as you guys were talking about the combat system, I am not against a combat system that's turn-based style that's action-y, but it needs to flow well. And for me personally, and I kind of want to hear everyone's take on this, it did not flow well. It was very clunky. Characters would sometimes just go off and attack random targets for me even though like I'd have them set with the gambits to target of party leader, they would just not. They would just turn and target a random guy when they have one guy half dead. So they were
Or
wasting...
I'd have them like, where is Balthier? Oh, he's way over there in the corner fighting some random bat that I didn't even know was there.
Yeah. Or like if there's a sleeping enemy, I'm not sure if you guys had this happen, your guys will just charge at it.
Yeah.
Those frogs, man.
Like, they're just like, oh, it's asleep. Goodbye. Let's charge. Let's wake it up. It's like, we could at least, like, set up some sort of, like, hit so we're all hitting it, you know, getting, like, a sneak attack. Because I feel like if they're sleeping enemies, it's probably, you can either go past it, or you can get, like, a sneak up and, like, combo it down really fast. No, we're just gonna, okay.
But, like, one of the things that bothers me is that, like, when you can move around the way you can while the meters are building and stuff, it makes it feel like you can, like, dodge stuff or something, and you can't.
Yeah,
and
no.
That's something that bothered me the first time I played it, too, was just, like, it just kind of feels pointless. Like, there's no reason I can move around right now.
Yeah.
I mean,
Other
I
than the
was
kite.
using it early on, where, yeah, you can kite, but there isn't dodging.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's kind of like, I'm kind of low health, so I'm just going to run around in circles while Fran heals me and Balthier shoots it, and maybe I'll live.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, my take on it is because I believe they just started this for this game.
Yeah.
And I've not played them, but I've seen some of the later Final Fantasy games with the similar type system, but much more refined. And I think they definitely refined it to be much better later on.
Yeah, it's like their first foray into doing that kind of thing, but it's like if they were going to leave that system in the remaster, they should have fleshed it out or something, and not left it exactly the same as it was before.
That's my problem with it too, because in the descriptions of the remaster, they even state that they reworked game design to bring it up to the modern era. No,
It's been a long time since I played it originally, because I played it close to release, I think. But like it. Other than it looking better, it felt pretty much exactly the same. Nothing stood out to me as, wow, they really fixed this.
Yeah, it doesn't look bad, but I don't think this is. I don't see this as an actual remaster.
Like I said, with I started out with Final Fantasy from the Nintendo version. I've loved the Final Fantasy games all the way through, and I got into this. I was like, I haven't played this one. I want to get into it, and within the first probably 5-10 minutes of the game, as soon as you get through the storyline and you get in your first combat, I immediately had problems with the game. I did not like the combat at all. I have struggled with the combat the whole time, and when y'all have people in auto, I turned off all the gambits the whole time. Like, I set my people to go, because as soon as you get the first 2 party members and start in 3-person battles, the computer AI was not responsive, and I've played Dragon Age and all that. They have more better systems for similar things, and it's more actiony, and this is more turn-based, and the characters are stupider. Yeah. So it didn't help me at all. I did not like that one bit. That was probably... The combat is probably my biggest dislike of the game. I hated it.
Okay.
I think part of it might come down to the intended play style with it, where at least once I got the 3-person party, I was going through intentionally trying to kill all the enemies, because I know that it's at least somewhat common for JRPGs to kind of be based around you either grinding levels at some point or clearing out all the enemies in the areas you need to go to. So I was just doing that and clearing the areas, and so I wasn't particularly running into these issues.
My characters were over leveled, and they were still just being stupid.
It wasn't a matter of power level for me. It was just that they would do stupid things and waste valuable time. It's kind of a transition, though. Just out of curiosity, how did you guys feel about Vaughn? as a character.
He's annoying, but he's a child, so I'm like, how much of that is intended and how much of it is just like, I hate this character. Like, I wouldn't even say I hated him. It's just
I hated
he was
him.
obnoxious.
I did not.
My least favorite, definitely.
Oh, Ninth, it sounds like you got the farthest in. Does he start growing up?
Yes, and that is the amazing thing. I think they created him annoying and whiny for a reason, so they could actually make an arc, a character arc, or
like, because I mean, he is a kid, so
Yeah.
he acts like a kid.
I can understand him starting out as the little shit that he is.
Yeah.
I can't
The
stand him.
Final Fantasy games and Dragon Quest games all have the annoying character in pretty much every one of them that either grows on you or you get to kill him off in a spectacular way. And this is one of them that's supposed to grow on you. I did not reach that part yet, and he was obnoxious. He didn't bother me as much as some of the other ones have, but he was pretty up there.
I'm gonna say that as just a general trope rule, then, because this is the second time we've come across this in a game that we've reviewed, I just hate it. I'm not against annoying characters or people existing, because annoying characters or people do exist. But generally, when I'm playing a game, my goal is not to be annoyed, especially by the main character.
Yeah,
Like,
I get that.
If it's a side, because at least with like, I can't believe I'm about to compliment this game, because you know how I feel about this, Brim. At least in Dragon Quest Builders, she goes away.
Yep. He's one of those characters that does grow up throughout the game. I've watched a lot of the storyline and stuff because I was like, I just want to figure out what's going on further on, because I'm probably not. The combat was just too much for me that I could not keep playing it. I played, I think, 15 hours into the game or something like that, and I stopped having fun. Like, the story was still good, the graphics are still nice, everything else, but the combat just couldn't make it back from the combat. And the characters were just, from the point that I got into, Vaughn never grew up.
Yeah.
And one thing that William pointed out that also bothered the crap out of me was that you have to use the action menus to use items. You can't like go into the menu and go to items and use items from there like you can in every other Final Fantasy game that's ever existed. So I kept going into that and going, shit, I can't do this. Sorry, language.
You're good.
But like I kept opening up the menu and then going, oops, I can't do that. I have to do it this way. It makes no sense why you can't.
I can't tell you how many times I did that because I'm so used to going to the item screen outside of battle, and you just go in there, go in your items. My character's low. You press your high potion button, and it just highlights which character you want. You just keep giving it to them until they're full up. And this is the first game that I've had that better not say the first thing. I think Final Fantasy 15 has a similar system. I played the demo for it. And I didn't like that. I like going into your screen if you're out of battle.
Pause it, go to items, heal up. No, you have to use the action menus.
Yeah. It was frustrating.
Speaking of controls, I played with a controller because you absolutely had to in this game.
Yes, I
keyboard
was
and mouse
that
was
too.
trash.
Like, keyboard and mouse feels terrible. You can ask William. I don't use controllers for anything, but I had to for this game because
And I played with a PlayStation controller, and I want to know why in God's name they made the X button backspaced and the circle button confirmed. That is backwards from every game ever.
Actually, whenever the Final Fantasy games started, I think Final Fantasy 7 or 8 are like this. It's reverse on one of them.
It drives me crazy because so many other games do it the right way,
They
constantly cancel it.
Super Nintendo, whenever it was back then, the B button I think was back, and the A button is. I'm trying to think of all the controller styles because there's so many controllers, but I think it's the A button is the bottom right corner, which will be the circle button on PlayStation, right? Yeah. And that's your confirm button.
Yeah, that's confirmed in this game and in just about no other game out there. And the one that's on the bottom is the backspace,
Yeah, I think either Final Fantasy 7 or Final Fantasy 8 was the reverse of that. It was the bottom button was confirmed and the right button was...
No, it must have been 8 because 7 was the other way. That feels wrong to me. I
they
always
swapped
swapped
those
it.
buttons around a lot, and I think it was because of the swapping of the systems, what it was
Mhm.
originally on and stuff, because it just swaps so many different things. Because then you had it on, I think this was one of the remasters that got put on Xbox, PlayStation, and PC, all three. So they just
Yeah. Well, I had to remap it because I just couldn't fight muscle memory on
They,
it. You know.
I think you could actually go into the I know on mine it had two options in the setting menu for the confirm button.
Yeah, I ended up having to change it because I like it where it was. You know.
Yeah.
So, I actually did this full review on keyboard and mouse because controllers hurt my hands really bad. And that is honestly one of the reasons why I'm going to dock it so many points that I am at the end here from me, because even the main menu didn't control right on keyboard and mouse.
I agree.
Not like it's not like this is a complicated menu. There's up and down. This should not be complicated.
Yep.
Like,
Yeah,
I
there was-
sat here button smashing on my keyboard. Like,
Until
why?
it responded, right?
Why are you not doing?
Yeah, for whatever reason, I always had to hit the back button to get that main menu to work. But that did consistently work.
I think the issue that we have with this game, I think the button where you had to do the back button and stuff with the controller, I don't think that's the game issue. I think that's a Game Pass issue. Because every time you log in, you have to go back and you have to sign in. You got to click on the thing, and it takes you out of that menu. And I think it's a Game Pass issue. So I don't know if that's actually a Final Fantasy issue or not with the controller. I don't know about the keyboard. I know the mouse keyboard sucks anyway.
I played it on my Steam version of the game because I had actually bought a copy of this on Steam.
Mhm.
I hadn't played it yet, but I thought I'd played this game before. I have not. But it did not have that problem on the Steam version. So I think
figured it
was
was
a Game Pass.
Xbox Game
So
Pass.
that's a Game
because-
Pass issue.
Yeah.
Okay. Still, it is a good thing to note, though. 'Cause-
Yeah.
Yeah.
And while I still overall like this game, it struck me and it hit you like a brick. This was a very sloppy port.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I was gonna say that, like, I'm sick of games being ported to PC and people excusing it as it was made for console. If you're going to port it to PC, do a
Fix
good
it.
job or don't do it.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
if you're going to
Fix
do it, do it right. If you can't do it right, don't do it.
Yep.
Yeah, and kind of with that, I have two things. One being, while there is a virtual keyboard in game that you can bring up, which has all the controls listed and everything, they don't tell you up front that it's there. I only knew it was there because I had noticed it on the main menu when I was originally trying to get past that Game Pass issue to get the
Yeah.
menu to work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I think I
having
brought
it is
by
great.
accident.
Having it in there is great. They just should tell you that it's there.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the stuff is not obvious. I mean, Tower found out pretty far through his playthrough that you could change the game speed.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
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 I found that out by
You
accident
found-
too.
I found out by watching Griff. Like, it wasn't
How are
even,
you
like,
walking so quick?
Yep.
Well, like, I think that brings up a big point I want to bring up, and that is, I'm notorious for saying the tutorial's too long. I hate the tutorial. Why can't I skip the tutorial? And I still stand by it. You should be able to skip tutorials, unless they are deeply embedded in story in a fun way.
Mhm.
This game explains nothing.
Yep.
Well,
No, it's too busy throwing a 30-minute mini movie at you at the beginning of the game.
Which is pretty, but when I start a game... Oh, and that's the other thing. So, fun fact, if you don't beat the entire tutorial after sitting watching the 30-minute mini-movie at the beginning because you were only playing for an hour and you suck at the game and you're slow at Final Fantasy, so you don't finish the tutorial and you close the game, it doesn't save your file.
Yep. It's got an auto save that you
Yeah, I
gotta.
think you have to get all the way past the part with Rex before it saves, don't you?
Yep.
You have to get all the way past that
Yep.
for it to actually save, which is pathetic. I had to redo an hour of gameplay.
Yep.
I was ready to give this game a 1 because of that, straight up. And I've never given a 1 because I lost an hour of my life for nothing.
The autosave feature in this game is actually more forgivable than previous Final Fantasies because on the other Final Fantasies there was no autosave. You would play it for an hour before you hit a checkpoint, and if you didn't save at that checkpoint, you're done because that was in the time when that was how the games worked.
Yeah, but I mean, once again though, it's one of those things where like this is a remaster. It's supposed to be a modern game. They should account for these things, especially with the cutscene intro being so long. I mean, it's pretty. It is pretty, but it is so long of an intro.
I was happy that they had it where you could actually skip cutscenes.
Yeah, it's just
a lot of games don't give you that option. I was kind of happy that you could skip it. If you've already beat the game before and you don't want to see the cutscenes, you just here for the combat and stuff.
Yeah.
Then you can skip all of them. It was nice.
If you give me an unskippable cutscene before a boss fight, I'd say dungeon.
God,
no trial.
The worst.
Yeah.
You were saying, Griff?
Like with what you're saying about they don't explain things, it's like there are a few things where they go through step by step with it quite in detail.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because did you play any more since yesterday?
Yeah, I played it.
Yeah, so you went through the Gambit tutorial.
Yeah, I went
like
through
that. They go through step by step.
Yeah.
And then there's chunks that they don't even mention.
They're like, oh, we're gonna be super in depth on this one system, and then everything else we're gonna skip. Super in depth. Skip. It's like
you get nothing, or you get torturously slow.
Yeah. And what I feel a lot of it, what I feel of it is it's so far this is Final Fantasy 12, and a lot of the stuff that they don't hit on is stuff that happened in previous Final Fantasies.
It's like you should know this by now.
But if it's your first one, they should have hit on it a lot more. Like certain nuances of this game should have been more in depth. I completely agree that they dropped the ball on what they should tutorial and what they shouldn't. And I also think all the tutorials should be one of those things that's in your I forget what it's called, but it's the log that gives you all the tips and stuff done in there. Yeah, the primer. I think they should have all the tutorials in there so that way, hey, I'm having this issue. Go look at it.
Yes.
It should have been that would have been a whole year.
And also when they get to the point of the tutorial, would you like to cover this? Yes, no.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's because a lot of this stuff I knew, and I was like, why have I got to do the save point? Why are you telling me how to save? I know how to save. This is my 12th Final Fantasy. I know how to save.
Well, that was the other thing. A lot of the stuff they covered in depth was kind of straightforward stuff, like Gambit. I mean, if you've ever done any sort of game where you have a party you're controlling, and they should basically just be like, okay, here's the trigger menu. Like, I think Brim brought up Dragon Age.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's just a trigger menu. That's all it is. But they spent so much time explaining that, but other things just nope. Like, guess not. Anyway, we're getting close to where we want to be for ratings. So, is there any like big cons or big pros that were missed that anyone wants to bring up?
I have a con, but I think y'all counted as a pro. I do not like the job system at all.
Oh.
To me, it when you do that to your characters and you just give them all the options, you could be this class, this class, this class, it loses the personality of that character, kinda. If the main character is set up, he feels like a thief character. Yeah, you can pick the class, but if you make him a knight, it just all the moves. Every person can lose his moves, and they lose that individuality that a lot of the other Final Fantasies have.
Fair.
And also, it's so big and confusing for somebody that doesn't know how to play this. Like, I played Final Fantasy, so I knew what I was looking for. But it's like you got 12 classes. Each one has a different tiers, different ways. And, like, I looked up and I was like, well, I'm just going to look and see what the best build is. And you look up and there's so many people just complaining about it online. It's like, this is so confusing. Just tell me how to do this. Tell me what I need to spec in is point for point. and it reminded me of like the old Warcraft trait tree where you go down through it. That level of min maxing and stuff, and most of it you don't even have to fool with. Like a lot of this stuff in your ability menus and stuff, most of it you'll never use. Like it doesn't. A lot of there's like the ones with the equipment and stuff. Some of those items you're never going to put on. You're never going to wear this accessory, but you have to unlock this useless talent to go further around or spend another 100 and something points around it and waste those points. So I just did not like it at all. It's not what I'm used to. I don't know if it's more of that or just whatever. It just I don't think it fit. I didn't like it at all.
Big final cons, pros before we go to rating. Alright, let's go into ratings. Alright, so starting with Brim, 1 to 10, and why? 10 being the best, 1 being the worst.
I've thought about it really hard on this one because I am a Final Fantasy fan. I've been a fan forever, and some of my favorite games are Final Fantasy games. And I'm going to have to rate this a 6. I thought I was going to get it higher because I was enjoying the story and everything else. But just the combat itself just drew me out of it so much. I could not go for... And I guess that brings up another con that I completely forgot about. The camera. The camera is horrible. It was so... There's certain times I couldn't see anybody because it was hung on a wall. And I know this was that era of horrible camera. But like you said, remaster. Should have got fixed. And just between the camera and the combat, I'm going to give it a 6 just because it dropped it down that far for me.
Weasel, 1 to 10, and why?
I'm going to preempt this by saying I'm heavily biased. I'm giving it a 7. And most of that is probably nostalgia, because I absolutely loved this game when I played it the first time, and playing it again was just like, it made me very happy. And there are a lot of things about it that I forgot that I hated, but overall, I still just have a lot of fun playing it, and I still love it.
All right, Griff. Griff?
I think I'm gonna have to go with 4 on this one.
All right.
Because I mean, also with the camera, moving it with the mouse in particular felt not clunky but sluggish, and like it had too much inertia to it.
Mm-hmm.
It just really did not feel good on the mouse. And with everything that they've said with modernizing it and bringing it up to modern standards, because it really does not feel like they did that, that's why I'm only giving it a 4 here.
Sounds good. All right.
All right, I'm going to go with a 5 on this, and I want to state that I love this game, but the problem is we're not rating just Final Fantasy XII. We're rating the PC port version of it. And I found a cheap copy of the PS2 version, and just based on the hour, I spent about 3 hours on the PS2 version, I'd give that an 8. You know, it just plays easier. You know, you have to play controller because you're playing on a PS2, and it just works better. But I'm going to go 5 on this because there are things I did not like. I thought this was a sloppy port, but I do love the game.
And for me, this is a 4 at best. I really had to put in a decent amount of time to get myself to bring this above a 3. I think it's a lazy port. I don't like the combat. The reason this game gets points from me is because of the story being interesting so far, and because of it being very pretty and beautiful. And the aesthetic, like the music and all of that. That's where it gets the points. It's the music and the story so far. For me, other than that, I did not enjoy myself at all. and the sad thing is, every time I started to enjoy myself, I found another thing that just ruined it. It was like, the first time I was playing it, I played for an hour. I was frustrated, but I was starting to get the hang of it. I was like, all right, I'm gonna do lunch. I'm gonna come back. Had to restart. Oh, I'm gonna do this. Miss things because they're not explained. The combat system gets me killed because my guys are running around doing stupid things. Like, it's just, yeah. So if the aesthetic and the story wasn't good, this game would probably be my first one. It is not. That spot is still reserved for some future piece of lovely garbage. That's not this because they saved it with story. But this is such a lazy port. Yeah. You know, 3.5. 3.5. Yup. 3.5 from me. All right. So what is the total score and the average?
So the total score is 25.5 for an average of 5.1.
All right. So it's community score wise, it is a 0.1 above average game.
Yep.
So there we go. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed the content, make sure to like and tell us what you thought about the game if you've played it, or what you thought about our take on the game. Also, if you haven't already, make sure to check out Brim's Twitch, which is in the link. Or if you want to see Ninth rant about things, his Twitter link will be in the description as well. Thank you all for being here, and we will see you all next time here at The Night Show. Bye! Special thanks to our patrons, Blue Phoenix, Louie, Drew, Hollowed Zen, Antiox, Kazlor, NinthPawn, AJ, Evil Gummy Bear, A Knight Errant Gravy Train, and Suboptimal Preservation Society. Thanks, guys!